What I want to talk about on today's call is the state of marketing, the power of focus, Facebook advertising, the best 3 sales questions, video marketing, the importance of faces.
This call is being recorded.
What I want to talk about on this call, guys, is the definition of a brand. You know, we're working so hard to build our brand and build our business. Sometimes we don't take a step back and just say, what is a brand? What is it that we're working to build? We can all name our favorite brands. We all know why they're our favorite brands. But I thought it was important to take a step back. You know, we've been doing a lot more than just lead generation and lead conversion. Even though I wrote the book called The Conversion Code, even though a lot of what we focus on is capturing leads, generating clicks, closing people. What happens is if you do a great job, no matter who you are, you build a brand. And right now we're starting to build a small brand at Curaytor. Our brand is becoming known inside of our industry and out. And so I wanted to go through the importance of a brand, kind of define what a brand is, some of the recent branding plays that we've been making at Curaytor, kind of what you would call the essentials of a great company brand. And then I'm going to get into the upside of us as a marketing team getting kind of quote unquote brand right. So let me give you guys a couple definitions of brand that I think are the best. One is branding is the encapsulation of a company's mission statement, objectives, and corporate soul as expressed through the corporate voice and aesthetic. That was from Margie Clayman. Here's another one, even more simply put. Branding is the representation of your organization as a personality. That was from Dave Kerpen. My favorite one is actually from Jeff Bezos, the founder and CEO of Amazon. I think this is the best quote about branding of all time. Your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. So what I wanted to talk about is some of the recent brand plays we've made and why, and how those are a little bit different. Like as an example, if you do something that's more about brand building and kind of branding versus lead generation, your metrics of success might be likes or shares or reach, or maybe comments or video views. Whereas a lot of times you may determine the success of a marketing campaign by leads and sales generated. And I want to be very clear, we didn't start with branding. We started with funnels. If you don't have leads, if you don't have people coming into your database, if you don't have sales happening, you're never going to build a brand. So we didn't start with thinking a lot about our brand, but we're thinking a lot about it more now. So as an example, you guys may have seen us put out CuratorShop.com. The Curaytor shop, like being able to buy swag, being able to buy shirts and hoodies and mugs, whatever it may be, like that is not going to make us any money. That is a loss leader. We do not generate real revenue from our online Shopify store. It just doesn't work that way. But man, people are wearing our stuff. People are drinking out of our mug. People are, I got a tent that I'm using now at my kids' soccer games. So the Curaytor shop is a good example of a branding play versus a growth play. The culture video we did, we produced a beautiful 2-minute Curaytor culture video. That's another great example of a branding play where we're talking a lot more about why we do what we do than we are what we do. Another good example of branding here at Curaytor recently is in our vernacular. Like we didn't call our new technology Curaytor Facebook ad search engine. We called it Curaytor Brain. That word brain is a branding play. You don't go to Starbucks and ask for a large. You go to Starbucks and ask for a venti. So the language that you use, another example, guys, is we talk a lot about CAB and cabbing, which stands for creating content, advertising it, and blasting it by email. We could have easily called that marketing or like growth steps. That makes sense, you guys? So create, advertise, blast, CAB, those acronyms are part of our brand. The name of our product is part of our brand. Our culture video. How about my Jordans, you guys? Like, honestly, people take pictures of my Jordans on stage. Like, I wear red Jordans every single time I speak, 100% red. And I can't tell you how many people talk about that. Bring that up. Snapchat me, Instagram me pictures, tag me and stuff when new Jordans are coming out. So sometimes your personal preferences actually become part of your brand. A lot of you guys know Gary Vaynerchuk. Who's his favorite sports team? The New York Jets. We all know the answer to that. Even though that has really nothing to do with his business, it's a part of his brand. So I wanted to give you guys a good place to start as our marketing team. You guys are all really sharp, but we haven't done a lot of thoughtfulness, meetings about branding. So a great place to start for us and really for any business guys is what's called a SWOT analysis. This is where you go through your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. So if you have never thought about branding and you really just want to kind of sit down and say, what do we need to think about when we think about our brand? The SWOT analysis is a great place to start. What are the current strengths, the current weaknesses, the current opportunities, and the current threats to our business? And a lot of times the answers to those questions give you the foundation for building your brand. But I wanted to go even further because I recently read an article that HubSpot put out, and they did a great job of covering the 7 essentials for a strong company brand. And I want to go through this list to give us a little bit of a guidepost as we proceed. But I think what you'll realize as we go through it is we have been doing a lot of this stuff. We have been talking about this stuff. We just haven't been putting it on paper and working against it. So I want to go through the 7 essentials for a strong company brand. And number 1 is purpose. Number 1 is establishing a clear North Star. As you guys know, our purpose is to help small businesses grow. Our purpose is to focus on help in a world full of hype. So your brand is a lot more going to be about your purpose than it is going to be about your product. Number 2 is consistency. This was actually a direct quote. When it comes to building a memorable brand, it's all about consistency. Consistency in the design, in the colors, in the formatting, in the verbiage, in the words we use. Like there's actually, I'll put this in, or maybe Annette could drop this for me in Slack, but I have an example of what are called style guidelines from companies like Skype and companies like YouTube. Like when someone else mentions your brand, when Annette is going to send an email versus Steve, who's writing a blog post, versus Tyler, who's working on a new person's website, versus Jimmy, who's developing the next product, like being consistent with the words we use, the colors we use, the logos we use across the company is critical. Consistency is what builds a brand. Number 3 is emotion. People are a lot more excited to be attached to a company that makes them feel something. And if you think about it, like think about how emotional people get when you bring up Android versus iPhone. Think how emotional people get when you have a debate about, Nike versus Under Armour. And what happens is the reason brands need emotion is because brands are built on larger communities of like-minded people. Like at Curaytor, like we're very relatable, but we're very confident, but we're also very cutting edge, but we're also a little bit edgy. Like when people describe Jimmy and I, and when they talk about Curaytor, they don't always just say what we do or how they say how we do it. They feel the emotion, they feel the passion exuding from us when we speak or write or coach. Number 4 is being flexible. So number 1, just to recap, is focusing on purpose. Number 2 is being consistent. Number 3 is committing to conveying an emotion. Number 4 is flexible, which is interesting because one of them is being consistent. But like an example of being flexible is the world changes really fast, especially in marketing. So 30 days, 60 days, 90 days ago, you probably have never even heard of something called Anchor.fm. Anchor.fm is basically an iTunes, Stitcher Radio, kind of a podcast competitor. And so we want to add new formats to what we do as a brand. Like we definitely have started using Facebook Live a lot more than we ever did in the past. So you need to be flexible with the things your brand will do, but you need to be consistent when they do it. So the graphics and the copy and the logos and the content quality, the type of content, the purpose of the content, all of that can remain the same, even though we may go do that, if you will, in new channels, Medium, LinkedIn, wherever kind of the new place may be. Number 5 is employee involvement. And this one is critical because if you guys don't help us figure out who we are, we'll never figure it out. We had a call recently where I talked about the listen, decide, communicate approach to management. And we want to listen to you guys about what you think our brand is. We want you to help us decide what the brand should be and stand for. And then we obviously need your help communicating that out to the public. And one of the interesting things here when you're building your brand is something that people overlook. Sales reps are critical for brand building. And I actually read a great article by Tracy Lloyd. She's the Chief Strategy Officer for Emotive Brand. And the way she framed it was that when you're building a brand, it's obvious to work with the marketing team like we're doing now. But it's not always as obvious to work with the sales organization. And the way that you should do that is you should listen to their pitch. Listen to how they address objections. Listen to how they position the technology. Listen to the exact moment when a no turns into a yes, and then identify why. So Steve, Annette, Mike, John, myself, we need to, as marketers and as branding people for the company, we need to have our ear to the ground with the sales calls. A lot of times, your salespeople are the best people at helping you craft your brand messaging. It's just not always obvious to ask the sales team how to build a brand. Number 6 is loyalty. Once you've built a brand and you're generating customers, you have to invest in service and add-ons. Like I said in my book, People Work, service is marketing. So a handwritten note. Like we love using bond.co, which basically will handwrite a note in your handwriting for you. Like I mentioned, we opened up the swag store and we gave out promo codes to it. We're giving out, I gave Jessica a $100 gift card the other day. So like sending stickers, the workbook that we do at Excellence that they get for free, them reviewing us publicly is a loyalty play. Jimmy doing a coaching every week for current clients is a loyalty play. Us doing our conference every year, Curaytor Excellence, that is a loyalty play. You build a brand around loyalty, not just acquisition. So handwritten notes, swag, reviews. How about Ambassador? We invested in a technology called Ambassador that tracks and pays our customers money when they send us another customer. That's how you build a brand, guys, through loyalty. And then the last step, number 7, is competitive awareness. As you guys know, we don't believe in competition at Curaytor. We believe in zero competition. But you have to at least admit that whether it's a competitor or just somebody that you admire, it's very smart to watch the brands you admire the most and figure out how you can adapt some of their tactics while staying true to your own brand. So as an example, Gary Vaynerchuk had this really awesome idea recently where he talked about documenting versus creating content. Like, I'm not a Gary Vaynerchuk competitor. We do not sell the same product. We don't go after the same audience. His brand is very different than my brand and the Curaytor brand. But that concept of documenting versus creating content, which is what we started doing with my podcast calls, which is what we're doing with Jimmy's content, which is what we're doing with my new video series. We're not taking a hard stop in creating content. We're just recording what we're already doing. So that would be a good example of me keeping an eye on Gary V, because I think Gary V does excellent work, and then figuring out how we can adapt some of his advice while staying true to our brand. So HubSpot called it a competitive awareness. I call it a complementary awareness because we don't believe in competition. So whoever the people you admire the most, how can you keep an eye on them and then slowly add really cool parts of what they're doing to your brand? Last two things, guys, keeping an eye on the progress. Like if you start building a brand and you do all this work and you're working really hard to kind of grow, top of mind awareness with consumers or with an industry, there's a really cool tool by Google. You guys can go to google.com/trends and you can type in the word Curaytor. You could obviously type in any brand and it will actually show you the volume of searches that are happening for that brand name. And you can quite clearly see how it grows over time, how there was nobody mentioning your brand before it started. And now month after month and year after year, you can kind of see that the branding you're doing is moving the needle. I love using Google Trends for that. Another great way to keep an eye on our brand is a tool I use called Mentions. So I love this technology. It's called Mentions, and that allows me to monitor our brand. If somebody uses Curaytor or my name or the conversion code or keywords related to what we do, if it was, call it small business marketing, Mentions is a great technology where it will bring you in real time any and all mentions of your brand. When your brand is mentioned, you need to be there. When someone says they love your book, you should say thank you. When someone says they have a question about your product, you should be there to answer them quickly. So Mentions is an awesome tool for monitoring the conversations about your brand. The last thing, guys, for me is what is the upside of getting your brand right? Like what is the benefit to the bottom line, to the company, to the morale, to your career of getting a brand right? And I wanted to give you one little kind of tangible number, and I don't want to misquote here, but it's pretty close. Like everybody is pretty familiar on this call with Zillow. Zillow has become synonymous with finding a home online. They're by far the number one portal for finding a home. It's like if you need a book, you go to Amazon, and if you need a house, you go to Zillow. And that didn't happen overnight. Like a lot of the traffic that Zillow got originally was through search engine optimization. A lot of the traffic that Zillow got originally was through pay-per-click marketing. But as your brand grows and as you provide a great brand experience and they love your site and they love the features and they keep coming back, well, now that Zillow's 10 years old, about 2/3 of all the website traffic they get comes from somebody typing Zillow in the browser. In fact, the word Zillow is now being searched as much or more as the word real estate. That's the upside of a brand. Direct traffic that just types your domain straight in the browser. And I want to look at that as well, Steve and Annette. Like, how has our direct traffic grown over the last couple of years versus social referring traffic, search engine traffic, email marketing traffic? The ultimate test of your brand is if they like it so much, they type it in the browser bar. Last thing, guys, is the brand strategy basically is meant to answer questions. I'll give you a couple of them. Why does your product matter? Why does your product matter right now? How is your product different and better than what others are doing? If the sales team can't answer those questions, they can't be successful. And what I know is that the better we have gotten as a company at explaining and exemplifying our brand, the faster our business has grown.
Hey, this is Chris. Thanks for listening to my call. If you enjoyed the call, please subscribe right now. Also, share the episode and use the hashtag #CallsWithChris. Every week, I choose a few people randomly to win a free signed copy of The Conversion Code, my USA Today best-selling book. You can also visit Curaytor.com, that's CURAYTOR.com, to learn more about my company, which is the one I'm running during these calls. We help small businesses grow faster, and we've been featured recently by Inc., Forbes, Fortune, and Entrepreneur Magazine.